hope you're all well and safe. A little Fred 2 video. I haven't done a Fred 2 video for months. And on this video, in this phone box here, we have a hit and miss engine sent in from DIYengines.com. Now, I wasn't expecting this engine. It's a little bit more expensive than I would normally review. I don't ask for anything, and I generally turn down more expensive products. Although recently, I must admit, I have started to accept radios because it just makes the channel more interesting. But I had agreed with DIY Engine to do a small little 50-60 pound spinning steam engine build, and then they sent this. This just arrived in the post. I didn't ask for it. And it's a hit and miss engine, one of the range of engines they do. I've actually got one of these. I bought one a couple of years ago. I did make a couple of videos on it and it didn't do very well, to be honest. But they are on the channel. I think maybe I went on a bit too much and bored people. But anyway, they sent this engine in, which I wasn't expecting, which was very nice. And you get a very basic set of instructions. But there is a catch to it. When I opened the box, and the box was a little bit battered, there was a handwritten note. I'm just going to flash it on camera and flash it off camera because I don't want to give too much away. But basically, by reading the note, it's a returned engine to them. It's something that they've sold before, and it's come back. And the note says, "Dear sir, please find enclosed the returned engine." And it basically goes on saying that they've been refunded. The people that bought this were refunded, and it doesn't appear to work. In other words, they couldn't get it to work. So DIYengine.com were good enough to refund them the money, and then they've sent the engine on to me, and on the basis that I guess if I can get it working, as I've already got one, then I can do a review on it. And I suppose they've already refunded the money for the engine, so it's a returned item. It doesn't really, in theory, it doesn't really cost them anything. And so it's a winner-winner chicken dinner situation if I can get the engine to work. Now, these engines, when you buy them, and I found this with the other one, they need a little bit of tinkering to get them to work. They're supposed to have been run at the factory, and all the settings supposedly have been done for you. But I found myself that they take a little bit of tinkering and a little bit of adjustment to get running properly. And also, the instructions you get are incredibly basic. It doesn't make it any easier. It doesn't explain to you really how you need to get the engine running. It just says oil it and put the fuel in. And it says that it's been pre-adjusted, so do not touch anything. And it can be frustrating to get running. This is really all you get. So I do understand that how someone might feel a bit frustrated if they couldn't get the engine running and returned it. So I'm starting from the bottom here because I'm not sure what exactly has been adjusted on the engine, whether someone's just tried it, couldn't get it to run, and then they couldn't be bothered, they returned it, or maybe someone has really gone all through this and adjusted all of the timing of these push rods and also the points and everything. So I really don't know what I'm up against, so I need to start right at the beginning. Anyway, let's have a little closer look at it, 'cause it is a nice thing. These are very nicely made. So this is the engine itself, and it just says it's a ×9 engine. It doesn't really give you any more in the description, but it is very nicely made. If you can see it, it's all metal, cast. I assume that's probably cast aluminium, I should think, or aluminium if you like, and the rest of it is all brass. You've got these little turned vessels here for where you fill up with oil, because it is a complete wasted oil system. And then you've got these will be cast iron. You've got the flywheels itself, which is the mass of the engine. And yeah, they're quite interesting. I'm not going to go into too much detail how this thing works. I did that on the last video, and I think I bored the arse off of people. But basically, you've got two valves. So it's a 4-stroke engine, and you've got two valves. You've got this tappet here and a push rod. This is the exhaust valve, and then you've got the inlet valve here, which is just on a spring. It works purely on vacuum. You haven't got a camshaft or a tappet or a follower on that, and it purely, when the piston goes back, it sucks, and then it sucks in fuel from the carburettor here at the bottom. Now the carburettor the ventura is completely open. There's no butterfly valve, which means that if this engine wasn't regulated, it would just run faster and faster and faster till it just destroyed itself, basically. So you've got a couple of weights, which on this engine I think are here on, I don't know if you see that on the fly on this wheel here, this gear wheel. So you've got a couple of weights, and when that they will open up at speed, because it's called a hit and miss engine, is because it only fires typically on idle. It will fire every sort of once in every 5 cycles. So if I do get it to run, it will be sort of kind of like pop 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 pop, and then as you increase the load on the engine, it will then fire more rapidly, to eventually it will fire on every stroke, and it will sound like a conventional engine. It's quite clever the way it came out. I mean, these engines came out in about 1890, and they were very popular to about 1910, when I suppose steam engines started to appear, which were probably more reliable, and then eventually diesel engines took over from these. But these were very popular in farms and homesteads, especially in America. And these were in use even right up to the beginning of the Second World War, sort of around about 1939, mainly because they were quite reliable and they were very easy to work on. A farmer or a homesteader would typically do their own repairs to their tractors and machinery, and once these got going, these were very easy to work on. And then of course diesel engines come along to run generators and things, and these became obsolete very quickly. So with this engine, like I say, we don't know what's wrong with it. What is quite interesting though is that it did come with a separate ballast, and it says on the note that extra ignition also included. So I think they may have had problems with the ignition, and they sent them out a extra ballast. But to me, this doesn't look like it's been used. It's very hard to tell, but there's no cutting back on the HT lead, so it might be that by that stage they'd given up with it. But like I say, I don't know what's been adjusted. I've got to approach this right from the very beginning. So really, when you think about this engine, it's very basic. All it needs to work is compression. It needs a spark at the spark plug there, and it needs fuel at the right mixture. And that's really the only 3 things that it needs. If it's got all of those, it should run in theory. So I think the first thing we'll do is, when I look at it, is I need to check, just to make sure it's got compression, then make sure that it has a spark. I'll try and look at the timing, because there is a small set of points down here. I'll try and look at the timing to make sure that it's firing at the right time, and then just a question of adding fuel. Now, when it comes down to fuel, they generally work on petrol, lighter fuel. You know, I mean, these things were run on anything back in the day. Like I say, the farmers, they would use what they had to hand, kerosene, anything. You know, obviously anything. I mean, I don't know if it would run on diesel. It probably would. Yeah, it probably would actually. So for use of these models, because there's no oil lubrication in the piston, you need to use 2-stroke, a mixture of 2-stroke oil and fuel, petrol. I've got some of that up in the loft. I'll get all that down when we get round to it. But yeah, the mixture on the carburettor, you can have a little mixture screw there. It's fairly crucial to get the engine to run properly. It should run without too much adjustment, but I did find before it was it's one of those things, if you like to fiddle with things, if you were the type of person that repaired lawnmower engines, or you had a motorbike when you was a teenager and then later a car, and you like to twiddle and adjust, this is brilliant because you can do this on your kitchen table. So I think the first thing will be to have a look at the compression, and then we'll put some batteries in it. It takes 3 AA's, and then we'll check that it's got a spark. Now when it comes down to the engine, you can buy this in different formats. This base here is extra. It's about, not expensive, it's about £13–14, and it allows you to fit the ballast and the batteries all in the bottom here. But you can buy this as a kit, and then you can fit it to your own piece of wood, and I would recommend doing that because when this runs, if it runs, it has quite a lot of momentum, it has quite a lot of inertia in these quite heavy flywheels, and it sort of poof, poof, and it tends to want to jump forward. So it needs to be securely mounted. But this one, looks like they bought the kit with the extra base. It's a nice model anyway, isn't it, really? I know I'm waffling here, but you know, it's nice just to have it as a display model. Right, let's have a closer look and see if we've got compression. So, as I remember, I think these are 4-stroke. And straight away, turning that is on a compression stroke. Definitely got compression, that is quite hard to turn. And if I depress the inlet manifold here, we should lose it and it should turn over. There we go, yeah, now it turns over. And then back up to the compression stroke. So yeah, we've got no problem there with compression. So I think next thing I say, I need to get some batteries in it. I mean, I do criticise the instructions, but this one's really bad. I mean, you've got the switch here. It doesn't even tell you what is on and what is off. It would be nice if they put a little thing around the switch, so at least you knew if you had the ignition on or off. Another thing that is slightly worrying, when you buy these, they're supposed to be run at the factory, and these aren't very efficient in the way that they run with the mixture. And normally you get a little bit of soot. Once it's fired, you get a lot of soot around the exhaust. It's best to use these outdoors, really. I'm seeing no soot on that exhaust at all, which means it doesn't look like it's ever fired. And these screws could do with screwing into the base a little bit further, looks like. So I think maybe someone hadn't done these to maybe change the ignition coil here. There is a wire cut there coming from the ballast, but I don't. It's only a single switch, isn't there, on the points? So really, you would only need 2 wires. I think the third one is just extra. Right, so here's the underside of it. We've taken the ballast out. I need to establish straight away how that switch works. Just need to check the continuity to make sure, and also make sure the switch indeed does work. Right, so I've stuck a little couple of pieces of wires in there because it's very fine. So let's try again. That's dead. And that's dead as well. That's interesting, isn't it? So that's fouled at the first fence because I'm getting nothing from that switch. Okay, not going to be so lucky. When I'm looking at the wiring, I was a little bit tricked there, thinking that was connected to both poles of the switch, but the black wire is just the return, and of course it switches on the red wire. But at least now we can test the continuity a bit easier. Thought I'd found it straight away. That would have been really, really lucky. And very unlucky for the previous purchaser. Things don't work that easy as well. So that's off. Yeah, that seems fine, doesn't it? Okay, so I need to remember that that is the on position. When I put it back towards the machine, it's going to be switched on. With the batteries in place, 3 cells, 1.5 volts each, so we should have, hopefully, about 4.5 volts going into the ballast. Yeah, that's quite healthy. So we know that the battery holder is working okay. I think next thing to do now is to just remove the spark plug. Dinky little spark plug, it's quite cute, isn't it? So I think we need to just remove that and have a look and make sure that's not defective. And there we go. Just going to have a closer look at that. So hopefully you can see that. Yeah, it looks okay, doesn't it? There's a gap there and we have an electrode. So there's no reason why that shouldn't spark if it's getting power from the coil pack or the ballast. So what I can do now is just as you would on a car or a motorbike, if I earth out the spark plug to the engine there, and then I go ahead and switch on the power. As I turn this over, we should see a spark. Get into the compression stroke. And I'm seeing nothing. Obviously getting no compression because we've got the spark plug out, but there definitely should be a spark there. And I'm seeing nothing across that at all. What I'm going to do is turn down the light. So hopefully we can see it, and then I've switched on the power. So if I close the points briefly, we should get a discharge and a spark. Whoa, you see that? You know again? There you go. So we have a spark, that's good. So the ballast is working. So the ballast is not a problem, but those points are not closing, so I need to carefully bend those and adjust those. That may have been the issue. And as I said at the beginning, you need to have a little bit of an inkling into tinkering with these engines. If you don't understand how engines work, it can be a bit of a problem, but that purely could be the issue. Let me put the spark plug back. Now we know that that works, we haven't got to worry about that. So what I need to do is put my light in there. So what I need to do is just adjust these points. It's on the compression stroke, so and I suppose the only way I can do that is just to bend this bottom part of it a little bit. So now when that comes forward onto the compression stroke, well, it's got some compression now. There you go. We now have a contact, and then that releases. So that we should have a spark. So one thing that's missing on this engine compared to my other one is the fact that it hasn't got a pulley on the flywheel here. So on the other one you can wrap a piece of string around it and you can yank it, and this goes in a anti-clockwise direction and it fires that way. This one is going to be done by hand, and that might be a problem, so I might have to try and think of some way of attaching a bit of string to that. Anyway, when it comes down to the fuel, what I'm going to do is, because this engine hasn't been fired as far as I can tell, I'm a little bit concerned about wear in the cylinder with the piston ring, so I'm going to squirt in some WD-40 in the back of the piston, and also just in the fuel tank, and suck a little bit of WD-40 into the cylinder itself. Now WD-40 is a marvellous thing really. I mean, you can clean things with it. It's a good cleaning product, but also you can use it as damp start on an engine. If you fire this directly into a carburettor, your engine will start on it. It's quite volatile, so we might even get it to fire possibly with the WD-40. And then when we come down to the fuel, now you can run these on lighter fuel, but what I found before was that it's really sooty. It's a really unclean fuel. So I searched on the internet and they recommended Coleman fuel, which is sort of like a barbecue fuel, I think. That burns fairly clean, but as I said before, you do have to mix it with a little bit of two-stroke oil, and then you end up with something like that. It's very slightly pink. Oh, on camera, very slightly pink, and that's what we'll be running it on. But firstly, I need to go around all these points of contacts for the bearings and these little geared wheels. I need to make sure they're all oiled, and for that I'm just using a good bit of Castrol Magnatec engine oil, 5W40. That'll be absolutely fine. So I need to do that now. I think they say that necessity is 9/10 of the invention or something stupid. So what I've done here, I need something to turn this. I did think of an electric drill, but that's not going to work. So I've just simply got a piece of string and this marker pen. And in theory, I should, if I hold this down, pull this, and it should be enough to get the flywheel turning. Well, okay, yeah, that sort of worked, didn't it? I think that's better than trying to turn it by hand. It's not ideal. There should really be a pulley on here, because I mean you might want to drive something from this as well, such as a motor or something. My other one's got a nice big pulley on it. They didn't think of that on this one. Anyway, I think that'll work, and what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to squirt some WD-40 into the fuel tank and suck some of that into the cylinder so that the cylinder is lubricated to a small degree. Right, I've got some in. I mean, there's lots of air bubbles which I didn't want, but you can see that there's a little bit of WD there in the fuel line pipe. That should be enough to draw that into the cylinder. This has got very oily very quickly. If I ever do get this to start, it's going to slide about all over this table. So next thing now is just to fill up the tank with two-stroke petrol, and with that little bit of oil we should be ready to go, I think, ready to give it a try. Right, that's absolutely brimming. There is a little breather in there as well to allow air back into the tank. So yeah, we're a little bit messy now. So we have a spark, we have fuel, we have a little bit of WD-40 going in before. And we have no idea about the mixture screw. We just assume that that's been played with. We'll just close it down. I'm going to close it down. I'm going to give it half a turn, give it one full turn, and then we'll see what happens. As I say, there's no soot on the exhaust. Right, next thing then is to spin it around this way and just give it a yank over. See what happens. I think I'll just run it dry for the first few pulls, just to try and get some of that oil into the cylinder. Right, this is a dry run without the ignition turned on. Yeah, I did see some fuel go in there. We've got lots of air bubbles though. That will not work particularly well if it does fire. Okay, we've got oil in the cylinder. I think next thing now is to switch on the ignition and just see what happens. Okay, here we go then, the first ever pull. Ignition switched on. Makeshift starting string. Need a bit of weight on it. Okay, let's see how it goes. And string snapped. Oh well, okay. Yes, let me fix that. Right, I've got the proper starting pull which came with my other engine. It's just a question now of trying to get this to attach really on that way round. I don't know if this is going to work, to be perfectly honest. Okay. Right, let's have another go then. So ignition on. See how we go. No, didn't it slip, didn't it? Yeah, it's a bit of a problem, isn't it? It's just, I say, they've let us down a little bit here. Right, I'm back with the string again. Maybe I was a bit too aggressive with the pull. If I pull it a little bit more gentle. Right, ignition on. A bit of weight on the engine. No, it just completely snapped. Bugger. Okay. Oh well, I did get it to run. Didn't fire, did it? Okay, definitely need to improve this though. Right, I've got some wire. It shouldn't snap. And I'll give that a go. See if that works. Hopefully it will. It's a bit thicker, that's the only problem. It's trying to get it onto the flywheel here. Would have been easier if they'd have put a pulley on it. Okay, that's one more turn on it, maybe. I think that's about it, I think. Right, hopefully on camera. Okay, so switch on the ignition. This is coming off as I speak. It's not good. It's a hit or miss whether it actually is going to work, is it? Okay. Okay, right. Definitely got it turning over now, which is a good thing. Obviously it's not firing. Right, we've got an airlock, I think. I think what's happened now is we've got a big air bubble in the fuel line, which you probably can or can't see. See it there? We need to get that out. That's not going to work, so I'm going to pull the fuel line off the carb. Oh, there we go. And shove that back on. That's it. Nothing like petrol all over the model. Right, smells nice. We now have no air going into the carburetor. Right, I'm back with a thinner piece of wire, slightly shorter as well. I'm hoping it's going to work a little better. Still not brilliant, I'll be honest with you. Right, ignition on, hopefully we're in camera. There we are, power on, we've got fuel. We should get a spark, let's see what happens. Come on. Look. Nothing. Give it another few pulls and then I'll think about opening up the mixture screw a little bit more. So I'll probably do a little bit of time lapse now. Whoa, did you hear that? It fired. It actually fired. So there we go now. Power on. Oh, it's a bit tight on the thing. There it goes. Oh! Fantastic. Conked out. Let me increase the mixture. Just give it a little bit more gas. It leaks fuel, which it shouldn't do. Okay, we'll have another go. This is all getting covered in oil now, it's slipping. This is where it's starting to get a little frustrating, so it's probably have a cup of tea time and walk away from it, I think. I don't think it will start just turning it by hand. Don't think you can get enough power on it. If it was all set up perfect, it probably would. Oh, there you go. There you go. Well, there's life in the old girl. There is life in the old girl. I said it wouldn't start by hand and it proved me wrong. See if we can get it to go again. It's not easy though. Okay, I wonder if it's flooding. I don't know if you can flood one of these. I don't think it's like a normal engine. I think it's probably got not enough fuel. I'm gonna turn it in, give it a bit more fuel. Ignition's on. Come on, you bugger, fire, come on. Come on, you can do it, you can do it, fire. There it goes. It's running. If I let go of this, it'll be all over the bench. There it goes. There you go, how about that? How about that? Let me try and zoom in while it's running. Put it around this side. So you can see that it's firing about every 5th and 6th stroke. And then I don't know if you can see that little regulator cuts in there, forces open the inlet manifold, and it runs on no compression. Try and take the fuel in a little bit. Runs better with less fuel. Oh, not enough. So about there. Now if I put a load on it, by dragging the flywheel, it should fire more times. There you go. That's every stroke now. So the more load you put on it, the less those centrifugal weights spin out, and the more it fires. Very simple design. It's a very. It's gonna. I'll turn it off for a minute because it's gonna get too hot. And there we go. Right. Shut it down. Well, we've got no coolant in it. Well, how about that? It's covered me in oil, which is nice. Smells like a two-stroke engine. Sprayed oil everywhere. So there you go. And I think that fuel leak seems to have fixed itself, covered in oil. Fantastic. So I think I'm now ready to go ahead and do the proper review now. So the people that had it before, the only thing I could see really that was wrong was that points gap just wasn't happening. Plus there's no instructions and it's not an easy thing to really get the grips with. And as I say, I did manage to start it by hand, but you really need something to pull on it. I was quite lucky really. That's quite, the exhaust is quite warm. So I will need to fill it up with water when I do the review. So yeah, I think the people that had it before me, they probably just didn't really understand how it worked and didn't persevere. There was nothing wrong with the model at all. I didn't have to fit that, where is it? That second module there. They didn't quite get to grips with it. Well, I'm pleased it works. I'll link DIY in enginescott.com in the description if you want to go away and check these out yourself. I'll be honest with you, I don't know exactly what they cost. I've got a rough idea, but I think it depends whether you want the base or you want to make your own base. I suppose really, as long as you hang on to it, the base was okay, but yeah, they're not particularly cheap, but they are, as you can see, they are very well made. Anyway, that's the end of the Thread 2 video. Cheers, thanks for tuning in. As always, if you could hit me a thumbs up down below, I'd be very, very grateful. And I'll catch you probably on the main channel. But as for now, look after each other, stay safe. Catch you on the next one. Cheers, guys.
Fred's in the shed where the magic unfolds. Fred in the shed with his trusty CB. He's a friend to the lonely on a frequency.